I've looked at the research of people passing away and how many die with regrets, which is the biggest thing. I wish I would have lived the life I wanted to live and not what other people expected of me.
Yeah.
That's the biggest regret. You have not lived the life that you want to author, that comes from the inside out, instead of what are the neighbors doing? What are the expectations of my community? What does this person want of me? What does this group expect of me? You go inside and you find out what you're made of, what your possibilities are, and what you want to do with those, with the time you have remaining. That's where my work begins with people. And honestly, what it is, I'm glad you mentioned the soul, because it's a spiritual evolution at its basic foundation. That's what I lead people through.
Welcome to Unmute with Priya, the podcast where silence ends, voices rise, and women rediscover the freedom to speak and live authentically, especially in life after 40. This show is proudly sponsored by Project Icon. I'm your host, Priya Sudarsanam. Let's dive into today's conversation. My guest today is Lynn Christian, founder of Soul Salt. She's a master certified coach, TEDx speaker, and author. And for nearly 3 decades, Lynn has helped people navigate reinvention, reconnect with who they truly are, and find the courage to build a life that feels aligned from the inside out. Lynn, welcome to the show.
It's such an honor. Thank you so much. It's so fun to see you again, too.
Same here. And this is really just hearing myself read your introduction is really all about what Unmuting's about, reconnecting with yourself and however many times you have to reinvent yourself. So my first question to you is that, question, you've navigated reinvention multiple times in your life. Is that correct?
Yes, I have. Yes, many times. There have been personally and professionally both.
Where was there a moment when you realized that the life you were living no longer fit you were becoming, or did that happen multiple times throughout your reinvention?
Multiple
Period.
times.
Multiple
times. I think each time part of that sense that I wasn't aligned any longer, or something had its season in life and was now time to go to something else. Each of those feelings were the catalyst for, okay, what's next?
Yeah. And as we talk about reinvention, and this is why I love this conversation, because a lot of times that reinvention in the women that I'm talking to is happening around this 40s, 50s, and you just coasted through life doing the thing that you thought you were supposed to be doing. Then all of a sudden it feels like it's overnight, but maybe it's just building where you're just, I can't do this anymore. My question is, why do you feel in all your years of experience, so many people know that they're unhappy, but they stay where they are anyway?
Yeah, there are many reasons. One underlying almost everybody is, and Keegan and Leahy have written about this in Immunity to Change. They're professors out of Harvard. And I spent some time in April of 24 working with them and getting certified in this dynamic of why are people immune to change. And basically, we have safety mechanisms in our autonomic nervous systems and in our behavioral patterns that say the status quo is safer, or the status quo is at least known. And when we want to change or shift, a lot of times we don't recognize that we have to go back to, why are we shifting? What are the new behaviors? Why are those important? How will I feel different? And we don't change through behaviors. We change through perceptions, thoughts, feelings, testing assumptions about ourselves, and very slowly, incrementally moving away from what used to be toward what could be. And there's a gap there. And I believe in their book, they talk about individuals who are going to die, who are heart patients, who are going to die if they don't start exercising, changing their diet. And way too many, like I think the majority, almost like 80%, maybe almost 85%, don't make the changes and they do pass away. These are not lazy people. These are just people who couldn't overcome their own habits and behaviors, patterns and thoughts, perceptions and feelings to make the journey through that dark night of the soul where change happens.
That's so powerful. And you said something there that really, really caught my attention when you said assumptions about ourselves. Because as you said that, I'm thinking, I often assume things about other people in my, in years of assume things and wasn't always the best thing, but never really reflected on what I was assuming about myself. So when you say that, when people, they have their perceptions, what have you found that people are assuming about themselves? And does it go back to these subconscious beliefs that started at early childhood? What have you found?
Yeah, it can. It can. Some of the common themes are I'm not enough, or I'm too much, or that can't happen for me. So those are some of those, or I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, some of those early childhood things. But even by the time we're teenagers, we've been looking at patterns and feedback from people like I did when I was a teenager and I was scoring the highest points and speaker points in all the debate teams for 3 years of debate. There are 4 debaters, 2 on your team, 2 on another. Every debate, they would stack up the speaking for 3 years straight. Out of all the 4 people in every debate I was in, I was the top speaker.
Yeah.
I made an assumption that feedback was telling me I should go debate for the rest of my life. Well, what job would that be? Probably being an attorney, a trial attorney. So that was my first assumption that I actually challenged before I got to college, thank goodness, because I was also having some concerns with my health. And
Yeah.
I just didn't have the energy to think about going into a career where I would argue for the rest of my life. So my first career shift was from being an attorney in my mind because of my debate scores as a teenager to deciding I would rather be a school teacher. I
Yeah.
would rather inspire people instead of argue for a living. So I think we have these assumptions that we make from feedback. We have them from messages that we get when we're being raised. Our society tells us certain things. Gosh, I'm working with a couple of activists who have retired from very prestigious jobs, and one is ready for the next phase of what the career will look like, and one's ready to retire to a next phase. And there are assumptions about who they were in their great roles that brought about immense amounts of change to their communities, and which parts of those identities can come with them and which ones are now complete. And some of those you have to pull assumptions out. Well, I'm this, I'm really good at this, so I should keep doing this. Or I'm done with that, so I should never even look at that industry again, even in, the next phase. We do it to ourselves. Society
Yeah.
does it to us. Our upbringing does it. It's all around us.
I love that there's just, even in hearing you talk, there's permission in evolving, there's permission in changing. And I think a lot of people think that they have to stay where they are because what happens if they change? What can happen as a result of it? So an evolution and growth, right? I mean, I think moving with it rather than resisting it. What have you found happens when these changes are happening and especially in a woman's life and you resist it? What starts to happen with that
That's
person as opposed to going with the flow with it?
going with the flow. There's so many things. They start to control. And so they're
Yeah.
grabbing onto and shrinking because it's like you're trying to keep all the things on the playing field and stay in control and keep your act together because that's what you know. And the other thing is unknown, and the unknown is very frightening. Our health can get injured. Our relationships start to blow up. Our effectiveness at work diminishes. The quality of our life diminishes. So health, quality of life, even our ability to have a spiritual aspect starts to shrink. And I'm working with somebody who's just coming into the practice now who's had that happen. Even their spiritual practice was shrinking. Who they were 10 years ago has shrunk because it's easy to get on that merry-go-round or that roller coaster and just hang on than it is to say, please stop. I'm going to get off. Off to what? I don't know, but I need to get off this merry-go-round. And so in the not knowing, sometimes we just tight grip it, white fist it and try to stick with it when it's hurting us.
Yeah. And when you talk about the not knowing, there's so much fear that we build up about that unknown, right? What have you noticed as far as, is there a difference between being stuck and being scared? Simply being scared, or being stuck in fear and being just stuck? Or is it the same thing? What have you noticed about that?
Depends on the person. It could be like a continuum
Yeah.
of I'm partly stuck and scared, or I'm mostly scared, but I feel a little stuck, or I'm mostly stuck, but I feel a little fear. It can be a whole gamut, and everybody flows on that spectrum. But usually those two things are present, and that's normal. You're going into the unknown, You want something better, but you're not sure that it will happen. Nobody's done it quite like you can do it, so you can't follow an exact roadmap. So, of course, there are reasons why you would feel stuck and afraid. And unfortunately, what happens is something eventually gives, and it's usually your sanity, your stability, and your health, and your quality of life that gives up before you let go. The wise
Right.
people will let go and just surrender and say, okay, emotionally, I've left the house already. I might as well follow with some action.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely resonate with that. For years, I stayed on the merry-go-round even though it was going faster and faster and faster. And it took a while for me to just say, all right, fine, I'm getting off of this. Yeah. So you often talk about that, say that, and I've heard you say this, and I remember this from our conversation last time, that people spend their lives performing. And the work that you do really helps people to come into an aligned life. What does it mean to be authentic? How do we know when that life that we're living is a performance versus something that's authentic to us?
Well, I have two distinguishing questions you can ask. One is, what's inside of me that refuses to be controlled? And what's inside of me that's too strong to be contained? So, to
Oh, that's
answer your
beautiful.
question, when you find the answers to those, if you follow that path, you're always being authentic. But if you are going along to get along, there's a part of your authenticity, and maybe you're doing it consciously. I mean, there are times when it's safer to stay in the boat than to jump out and try to swim to shore because you're too far away. So
Yeah.
sometimes the self preservation keeps us stuck, but other times it's like when we know and we can find that opening to sneak through or that window to walk, jump through or door to
Yeah.
cross or, a forest to get through and we take it, we find ourselves in a better place. We just kind of, like I said as earlier, we have to be willing to go through the dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that answer your question?
That totally answers the question, and that leads me into my next question. Everything that you're saying is like, oh, I can grab onto that. It's wonderful. And a lot of your business is called Soul Salt. You're talking about dark night of the soul now, and so many people and the people that I've spoken to who've listened to these episodes, they're successful. They've built successful lives, but they still feel like something is missing.
Yes.
What is that thing that they're longing for? Is it something related to their soul?
So basically, the answer to your question is we do start from in the inside out, from the soul. And my work with people starts there. Where is your capacity? What do you bring to the table? What do you want to do with it? What are the possibilities in front of you? Not including outside input. You can have that, but you want to self-author. And what I'm talking about is my work is basically a a journey of spiritual evolution for people to dig deep and go, what has been missing? And a lot
Yeah.
of times it's leading from the soul instead of leading from performances, leading from outside expectations.
Yeah, that it just makes me reflect on, like I said, my own life and the conversations that I had, even the couple that I had today, the other guests. The performance started early on from when we were children and going to school, and maybe the gifts. The person that I spoke to before had her gift activated at 4, then went to school, and that was shut off until about 30. So tapping into that the version of us. I mean, I would assume, and you're the expert in this, that when we do connect to that soul, it is so unique to us. There's
Yes.
nothing like that, right? I mean, you're not gonna find anybody else.
No,
Whereas
then you have a path of authentic success. Every leader that I work with, when we are working together, they actually redefine themselves as a leader from the inside out. And there is no formula of leadership that they can follow from an outside source that guides them to success faster than finding the salt of their soul and letting that be their brand and their style because that's who they are. That's who they are. And there's a way for them to find that best self and express it. And so yeah, I mean, the best self work that's done by Dan Cable shows us that we become 32% more engaged in life and work when we come from that place. We become 11% happier, and the people around us become 11% happier.
yeah, that was my next question. Obviously, if you connect to that soul, it's gonna have a ripple effect into other areas of your life.
You
And then
grow, yeah, you grow people. They they praise you for the rest of their lives because you found out how to grow yourself and now you know how to grow them and you allow them to become their best version of themselves. Your family becomes happier because you are happier, you know?
Yeah, happiness, it's I think, especially at midlife, my priority the first half of life were all the material things, not necessarily the big house and a lot of money, but just the things that would bring me status. And then the second half, it's happiness. It's very simple happiness. So yeah, I'm glad you share that. So, and in talk, you've worked with thousands of people. Has there been a common thread through the stories that they tell that keep them stuck in those people that you work with? Or is, like you said, each individual so unique in what's coming up for them?
I think there is a common theme. Some of us are very humble, teachable. We have the growth mindset. We are willing to keep evolving and be generative. And some of us are thinking this is as good as it gets. We don't have any more energy. We're tired. We don't want to be put upon or we're entitled. So we stay stuck. There are a lot of reasons. So it's those who are comfortable with mediocrity and comfort, and there are reasons why they do it. I'm not shaming them at all. They have motivations that make sense in their life. And then there are the people who say, I'll never be done. I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to keep enjoying. There's more fulfillment, there's more confidence and competence. My character can expand. There's more purpose I can live out. And they get ecstatic and joyous and full of their own vibrant self, and then they try to do it again. So I think there is a distinction, and it's okay to get to a point where you say I've done enough and I just want to be fulfilled enjoying my life. That's different. I'm talking about people who just kind of hunker down, double down and say I'm good. Everybody else should grow, or I don't need this.
Right.
And so they don't. They get to make that choice and they have the life that they have. And then there are those of us who are like, wonder what's around that corner. Or I wonder how I can be a better partner. Or I wonder how I can be a better parent or grandparent. I wonder how I can make somebody else's life better. I wonder how I can learn and grow in this one thing that's been really hard for me. What happens if I challenge that? And so yeah, there is a difference. There's a distinction, and you've met them. And again, I'm not saying there's right or wrong. There just simply is a line that I see. And the people on the side of I'm all in, game's on, I want to keep growing. Those are the ones I work with.
It's amazing. You were diagnosed with ADHD later in life.
Yes.
How did that change the way you understood yourself and everything leading up to the diagnosis, and how you even manage things in life and school and all the things?
Gosh, it was so helpful. And my fiance got diagnosed as autistic later in life as well. And we both reminisce on how all of a sudden some of our past became really clear. Like I understood why my mother didn't have the words for it, but she would shush me off and say, go with your dad. And my dad was a truck driver for a few seasons in life. So I'd be on the diesel truck with him. And I just had to get out of the house to give her a break of my motion and my movement, my energy. That made sense to me all of a sudden. The way that I would lose track of my thoughts when I was teaching, or I would misplace a folder. I was like, and so, yes, I did have strategies. I learned to focus in my own ways. I learned how to organize my days, and my planning changed. Giving myself a break and realizing I only have so much focus in a day. So using my ultradian patterns and my circadian rhythms. Knowing that gave me power to have grace and humor with myself, and then also gave me more information to manage myself better. So having a diagnosis worked really well for me, and it worked really well for my fiance, because now we know what we're dealing with. And now we have more tools, and we can also be legitimate. And this is why I did it. I had a former client who said, those of us who are neurodiverse need to know that you are too, Lynn. And so I validated that and said, okay, I'll go get the certificate that says, yes, I understand you. It's not self-diagnosed. I understand you. So I think that gave me some legitimacy in a world where people are looking for honesty about what do we do with neurodiverse brains.
Absolutely. The conversation I had before you earlier today, she was diagnosed with ADHD later in life as well. And everything she said, I was thinking, my gosh, I could have been you, maybe. And it was a little epiphany that maybe this was the reason I struggled through all of these things, but why I'm so creative and innovative too. Why my brain is just lights up with excitement when I'm thinking outside the box.
So did that not validate you on some level,
Oh, it
having knowledge?
completely
Yes.
validated me, and in
Yes.
talking with you too, I'm like, this is no coincidences. It's completely validating. And it's like for the first time, what, I'm 51, first time in how many years that I'm like, "Oh, I wasn't a bad student."
No,
Yeah.
no, you just thought in a neurodiverse way from the neurotypical instruction, right?
Amazing. Yeah, yeah. So I'm assuming to be the person that you are today on this episode with me, you had to let go of a lot of things, right? Just on this journey.
I think so. I think what I found out was what were my absolute drop dead yeses. So I could make space to let go of my drop dead no's. And then the other stuff can be maybes or somedays. And so, yes, to that question. I don't know if there's more to that question, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I just obviously, I think it's validating, and especially to listeners to hear that, hey, when you're going through this and when you're becoming that version of yourself, that most aligned version, things fall away because I think it could be quite painful.
it can be. And the one thing that I've worked probably the hardest on over the last 5 years was letting go of the ego that's not healthy and hanging on to the part of ego that is healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing to even that there's healthy and then there's unhealthy, and then we don't have to let go of it. I think when you're doing spiritual work, so many people that I've spoken to are everything is ego, and I got to let go of that. But there's healthy versions of it. We need our ego to
Yes.
survive, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
we do. We need a sense of self. We need a sense of autonomy and authenticity and knowing that and then saying, that's me. That's the
yeah,
salt of my soul. That's how I will align versus something that, ego. One of my mentors, Mark Twight, a former alpinist, and he and his former wife built Jim Jones, which is an elite gym in Salt Lake City. He said, ego driven load selection often leads to injury. And so my latest separation from the harmful ego is I'm a fencer, and sometimes the only people I have to spar against are men who are usually bigger and stronger. And we had a major clash 2 weeks ago, and I have a cracked rib. And I'm taking the cracked rib as an opportunity. Mind you, this is 2 weeks before the national competition, the end of the season, the culmination of everything I've worked up to. So I'm injured. And I am letting go of the ego that says you must do this or you must do that. And I'm allowing every day to figure out what's the next step. What's the next step forward? And letting go of anything inside my body that might be holding myself too tight. Because in martial arts, there is a fluidity to it. And so you must go with the flow versus always pounding it out. Does that make sense?
yeah. Great lesson for anything. I mean, yeah, totally makes sense. I hope your rib gets better very quickly.
Me too. It's going to take what it takes, but that's anybody that's had a cracked rib, a bruised rib, a broken rib. It's a 6 week to 8 week journey. So there you have it.
Let's talk about Soul Salt. It's your business and the people you support and how people can work with you. We'll make sure to put all those links in the show notes. So
Okay.
tell us a little more.
Yeah, so there are two groups. One would be individual leaders who know that they need holistically to look at their leadership. So they want to look at their health and stop ignoring that that's a factor in their success. So, and we work with other practitioners. I'm not the medical or the wellness practitioner in this case. We work on the wellness side of it, the body. We work on the mindsets, the mind, and we work on the spirit, and we bring them from where they are to a higher evolved version of their leadership, their style, their brand, their effectiveness. How do they grow themselves? How do they grow others? How do they up their game in communication? How do they up their satisfaction with the life that they're designing for themselves at home? And then, so that's one part. And then the other part is something really new, absolutely new. I don't think we've talked about this. And this is some of the most sacred work I do, Priya.
Yeah.
This has just evolved. We have our first 3 clients that we're working with, and I'm working with my fiance, who is a shamanic practitioner. These are people who know in their bones there's something they haven't addressed, and it probably has to do with a past trauma that they haven't faced. So I'm working on and completing before the year is over my trauma-informed coach cert. My fiance has a PhD in clinical psychology, a background in vitalism, herbals, herbalism, shamanic practitioning. My fiance is a channel, a medium.
Yeah.
And we're bringing this very esoteric part of that work and blending it with the very honed executive presence, executive coaching that I do. And it is a spiritual evolution track called Soul Sovereignty. And so, again, we have our first 3 clients going through it. We've been playing with it off and on with some beta clients. And again, that's some of the most sacred work we do because there is no part of their life that goes untouched, re examined, and there is a definite evolution upward in every aspect of their life from that.
Just sounds so beautiful, and the name Soul Sovereignty just is a great name. So if people go to and as far as wanting to work with you, would they just inquire in the website? Is there an application process?
Yep, you can get an intake form on the website. So you can go to soulsalt.com. You can also go to soulsalt.com or soulsonghealingguidance.com. And then you can find out more about my fiance. We're posting on Instagram about it. So Soul Salt Inc. on Instagram. And then we have a joint Instagram that we just started called Soul Sovereignty Now that they can find. So those are ways to get in touch. And we start with somebody reaching out and we send an intake form. And if the person qualifies from the intake form, we have a discovery call. If it's still a go after the discovery call, we'll co-create an agreement, send that out. And then if that gets signed, then we sit down and create a year program based on objectives that we've written from all the work we've done together up to that point. So it's not just you can't just step in and hire us. It's something where each step along the way, we're all deliberate about if it's a good fit, if this is something you can invest the time and energy in. And so I can't say it's a full application process. It is a process to find out if it's right for you.
Amazing. We'll make sure to put all those links, the Instagram and all the websites into the show notes so that anybody can get in touch with you. Lynn, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much again for sharing just even a glimpse of the work that you do and then your knowledge too.
Thank you.
In closing, if somebody's listening to this, they know that they're meant for that a different chapter is due. They're ready to author a new chapter, new book even, but they're terrified to take the first step. What would you want them to know?
I would say that the first step you could do if you need to be and you're terrified, get the book,
Soul
Soul
Salt.
Salt, the field guide, my book. Go through at least the first 3 chapters, if not 4, and see if you can start to get a sense of what you really have inside of you that wants to no longer be controlled or contained. And if you can get in touch with that and now feel like in the sacredness, the confidentiality, and the gentleness of us holding space for you, you're ready to walk forward on a 12-month journey that is paced to your pace, then reach out after that. But this could be a precursor to get you started and to give you more confidence in your own ability to have what you really say you want, even if you're not sure what that is, but you know it's something different than what you have.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lynn, for being here with me today.
Thank you, Priya. It's such an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. And this show is brought to you by Project Icon.